Let me ask you something personal, and I want you to really think before you answer. When was the last time you woke up and actually felt good? Not just functional, not just getting by, but genuinely energized, clear-headed, and ready to take on the day. If you had to pause for a moment to think about that, this video is for you. I'm Dr. Maxwell. I've been practicing endocrinology for 45 years. I've treated thousands of men. And I've watched a silent epidemic unfold right in front of my eyes. Today, I'm going to tell you about something that is quietly stealing years from your life, and you don't even feel it. 115 million Americans are living with this condition right now. That's nearly half of all adults, more people than the entire population of Japan. And the most terrifying part? Most of them have absolutely no idea. They don't feel sick. They don't look sick. But their bodies are fighting a losing battle. And they don't even know they're at war. This is prediabetes. And if you think this doesn't apply to you, I need you to stay with me, because what I'm about to share might just change everything. Before we dive in, if this message resonates with you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I read every single one. Now let me tell you about a man named Bob. Bob walked into my office about 8 years ago. He was 62 years old, a retired school teacher, a grandfather of 4. He came in for a routine checkup, nothing special. He told me he felt fine, a little tired in the afternoons, but he figured that was just part of getting older. He was carrying a few extra pounds around his middle, but nothing alarming. His blood work came back, and his fasting glucose was 118. I looked at him and I said, "Bob, you have prediabetes." And he looked at me like I had just told him he had 6 months to live. He said, "Dr. Maxwell, that can't be right. I feel fine. I don't have any symptoms." And I told him something that I want you to hear very clearly. "Bob, that's exactly the problem. Prediabetes doesn't announce itself. It doesn't tap you on the shoulder. It whispers so quietly that by the time you hear it, the damage has already been done." Bob left my office that day with a choice. He could ignore it like millions of others do and continue on his path, or he could do something about it. I'm going to tell you what Bob chose and what happened to him later in this video. But first, I need you to understand how we got here. How did 115 million people become pre-diabetic practically overnight? There are 7 reasons, and I promise you, some of them are going to shock you. Let's start with the first one. And this one, I guarantee, is something your doctor never told you. I remember a time when a fasting blood sugar of 115 was considered perfectly acceptable. Your doctor would look at that number and say, "You're fine. Just watch your diet." And you'd walk out breathing a sigh of relief. But here's what changed. Medical science evolved. We started doing long-term studies that followed people for decades. And what we discovered was alarming. The damage from elevated blood sugar doesn't start at 126, the diagnostic threshold for diabetes. It starts much, much lower. Studies from the American Diabetes Association show that signs of vascular damage, inflammation, and insulin resistance begin appearing when your fasting glucose rises above 90. Think about that. Millions of men were told for years that they were perfectly healthy, while their bodies were already heading toward a cliff. The goalposts moved and nobody told them, so they continued living exactly as they always had, never knowing the damage was being done. That's the first reason. But the second reason is something that has been happening right under your nose every single day, and it's the complete transformation of our food supply. I want you to think about what you ate yesterday. Not the obvious junk food, the everyday stuff. The bread with your sandwich, the dressing on your salad, the sauce on your pasta, the yogurt you had for breakfast. The average American adult now consumes about 17 teaspoons of added sugar every single day. That's more than twice the recommended limit. But here's the part that really gets me. Most of that sugar doesn't come from dessert. It comes from items marketed as healthy. The food industry has systematically added sugar to almost everything because sugar makes things taste better, and it makes people buy more. But do you know what happens inside your body? Every time you eat a meal high in sugar and refined carbs, your blood sugar spikes. Your pancreas releases insulin to bring it back down. That's its job. But over time, those spikes get more frequent. Your cells start to become numb to the signal. They stop listening. That's called insulin resistance, and that is the engine that drives prediabetes. You didn't become sick overnight. You spent decades eating a diet that trained your body to ignore its own blood sugar control system. By the time the numbers crossed the line, your body had been struggling for years. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. It's not just what you're eating, it's how you're eating it. And that brings us to the third reason. Walk into any coffee shop in the morning. Look around. You'll see people eating breakfast while scrolling through their phones, answering emails, barely chewing. Lunch is eaten at a desk or in a car. Dinner is in front of a television, completely disconnected from the experience of food. And this matters more than you think. Your digestive system isn't a passive pipe. It's a sophisticated signaling system. When you eat, your brain and your gut communicate constantly. Your stomach releases hormones that tell your pancreas exactly how much insulin to produce. But that entire system works best when you're relaxed and focused on your meal. When you eat in a stressed or distracted state, your body shifts into fight or flight mode. Digestion slows. Blood sugar control becomes less efficient. Insulin sensitivity drops. Studies have shown that people who eat while distracted have significantly higher blood sugar spikes than people who eat the exact same meal in a calm state. Same food, same quantity. Completely different metabolic response. So you have millions of men eating a diet loaded with hidden sugars, and they're eating it in a way that makes the problem worse. But there's a fourth reason, and this one is going to hit close to home for a lot of you. Think back to your grandfather's generation. Even men with desk jobs moved throughout the day. They walked to work. They climbed stairs. They did physical chores. Their bodies were in near constant motion. Today, the average American spends over 10 hours a day sitting. 10 hours. That's more time than most people spend sleeping. And when you sit for that long, the large muscle groups in your legs, the biggest calorie-burning engines in your body, essentially shut down. They stop contracting, and because they're not contracting, they're not using glucose from your bloodstream. That glucose stays in your circulation. Your pancreas has to produce more insulin to move it into your cells. Over time, high glucose and high insulin create the perfect storm for insulin resistance. And here's the part that still surprises my patients. You can exercise for 30 or 40 minutes a day, and that's great. I recommend it. But if you spend the other 15.5 hours sitting, your workout cannot fully compensate. Your metabolism isn't built for extremes. It's built for consistent, low-level movement throughout the day. A long-term study found that men who sit more than 8 hours a day have a 90% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And that's independent of their exercise habits. So you've got a diet filled with hidden sugar, eaten in a distracted state, while you're sitting for most of your waking hours. It's a recipe for disaster. But there's a fifth factor, and this one is often completely ignored, and I see it in my practice every single day. It's sleep. Or rather, the lack of it. Men today sleep nearly 2 hours less per night than they did 60 years ago. 2 hours. That doesn't sound like much until you understand what happens inside your body. When you consistently sleep fewer than 6 hours a night, your body produces more cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol directly raises blood sugar by stimulating your liver to release stored glucose. Your body thinks you're under threat, so it gives you energy to fight or flee. The problem is, if you're not fighting or fleeing, that extra glucose has nowhere to go. Second, sleep deprivation reduces your insulin sensitivity by roughly 25 to 30%. After just a few nights of poor sleep, your cells become significantly less responsive to insulin. The same meal that caused a mild spike now causes a much larger one. Third, sleep deprivation alters your hunger hormones. Ghrelin, the hormone that signals hunger, increases. Leptin, the hormone that signals fullness, decreases. So you're more likely to overeat. And you're more likely to crave the very foods that spike your blood sugar the highest. Less sleep, more eating, worse metabolism, and you never feel sick. You just feel tired. And you attribute it to age. You say, Dr. Maxwell, I'm just getting older. And I have to tell you, it's not just age, it's metabolism. But wait, there's a sixth reason. And this one is perhaps the most surprising of all. It's something that most men never think about. Common medications. If you're a man over 50, there's a good chance you're taking at least one prescription medication. blood pressure medication, cholesterol medication, something for joint pain or acid reflux. And many of these medications, which are absolutely necessary and life-saving, can have unintended effects on your blood sugar. Certain blood pressure medications can reduce insulin sensitivity. Some diuretics can raise blood sugar by depleting potassium and magnesium. Statins, among the most prescribed drugs in the world, have been shown to increase the risk of new-onset diabetes in some studies. That doesn't mean you should stop taking them. I want to be very clear about that. But it does mean that millions of men are taking medications that are nudging their blood sugar in the wrong direction. And their doctors never mention it. They don't know to look for it. Your blood sugar creeps up. Your doctor says, watch your diet, but they don't connect the dots to the medication that might be contributing. And as you age, your body changes. Kidney function changes. Liver metabolism changes. The way you process medications changes. What worked at 50 might be affecting your blood sugar at 65 if you're on multiple medications. Those effects can compound. Each one nudges your blood sugar up a little bit. And over time, those nudges add up. And that brings us to the seventh and final reason. The most overlooked factor of all, and this one really hit me hard when I first started seeing it in my practice. It's chronic low-grade inflammation. When we think about inflammation, we think about swelling, redness, pain. But there's another kind of inflammation, and you cannot see it or feel it. It's happening at the cellular level. Visceral fat, the fat that accumulates around your organs, particularly in your abdomen, is not just stored energy. It's an active endocrine organ. It releases inflammatory molecules called cytokines directly into your bloodstream. Those cytokines travel throughout your body and interfere with insulin signaling. The more visceral fat you have, the more inflammation you have, and the more insulin-resistant you become. And here's the trap so many men fall into. You look in the mirror and see a little bit of a belly, but you don't think much of it. You're not obese. You're not even overweight by some standards. But that visceral fat, the fat you can't see, is quietly releasing inflammatory signals that are sabotaging your metabolism. And this inflammation doesn't just affect blood sugar. It affects your blood vessels, your heart, your brain. It's the common thread that links prediabetes to heart disease, to stroke, to dementia, to so many of the chronic conditions that shorten men's lives. So when you step back and look at all 7 of these factors together, the picture becomes clear. The explosion of prediabetes wasn't caused by one single thing. It was all of them working together, compounding each other, accelerating the damage. And because each change happened gradually over decades, nobody noticed. The frog in the boiling water. If you drop a frog into boiling water, it jumps out immediately. But if you put it in cold water and slowly raise the temperature, it stays there until it cooks to death. That's what happened to 115 million Americans. The temperature rose so slowly that they never felt the heat. They never felt sick. They never felt like anything was wrong. And then one day, they went to the doctor for a routine checkup. And the numbers told a story their body had been living for years. Now, I don't tell you this to scare you. I tell you this to wake you up. Because the truth is, prediabetes is reversible. I have seen it happen hundreds, maybe thousands of times. And I want to tell you about Bob. Remember Bob? The retired teacher who walked into my office with a fasting glucose of 118. He left that day with a choice, and he made the right one. He started with one change, just one. He started eating a savory breakfast. Eggs, vegetables, no toast, no cereal. That was it. He didn't change everything overnight. He just made that one small shift. After 30 days, his energy improved. After 60 days, his afternoon crashes disappeared. After 90 days, he came back for a follow-up. His fasting glucose was 94, normal. He looked at me and said, "Dr. Maxwell, I feel like a different person. I didn't know I was sick until I got better." Bob reversed his prediabetes without medication, and he did it with one change at a time. That's what I want for you, not to change everything tomorrow. That's unrealistic. But to pick one thing, just one, and commit to it for 30 days. Let me give you some practical advice. Start with food. For decades, we were told to eat low fat, but when they removed the fat, they replaced it with sugar. The low-fat movement made the epidemic worse. Instead, focus on protein and fiber. Every single meal should contain a source of high-quality protein and a generous portion of fiber. Protein stabilizes blood sugar. Fiber slows glucose absorption. Fewer spikes, less insulin demand, better metabolic control. And here's a specific recommendation I give to nearly all my patients. Start your day with a savory breakfast. Eggs, vegetables, maybe some avocado. Skip the cereal. Skip the oatmeal. Even the ones marketed as healthy. Those spike your blood sugar first thing in the morning and set you up for a day of metabolic instability. When you start with protein and fat, your blood sugar stays flat and your energy remains stable. You won't crash at 10 a.m. You won't crave a sugary snack before lunch. And there's a second strategy that's incredibly powerful. The order in which you eat your food. Eat your vegetables and protein first. Save your carbohydrates for the end of the meal. Your blood sugar spike will be dramatically lower. Same food, same quantity, eaten in a different order. One of the simplest strategies I've ever seen. Now movement. And I'm not going to tell you to run a marathon. I know most men over 50 won't do that. And they don't need to. What I recommend is micro-movement. Stand up every 30 minutes and walk for 2 minutes. That's it. Sounds almost too simple, right? That's exactly why it's so powerful. When you interrupt prolonged sitting, even for 2 minutes, your muscle cells become more sensitive to insulin. Your blood sugar drops. Your circulation improves. Your brain gets more oxygen. It's not the duration. It's the frequency. Set a timer. Every 30 minutes, get up, walk around, stretch, climb a flight of stairs. These small actions add up to massive benefits. Sleep. And I know this is a difficult one. I hear it all the time. Dr. Maxwell, I've been a bad sleeper my whole life. And I gently push back. Because the evidence is overwhelming. Even one night of good sleep measurably improves insulin sensitivity. Start with consistency. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on weekends. Keep your bedroom cool, dark, and quiet. Put your phone away at least an hour before bed. The blue light suppresses melatonin. And cut caffeine after early afternoon. Half of that caffeine is still in your system at 9 p.m. Enough to disrupt your sleep, even if you don't feel awake. Stress. The invisible hand that drives so many of the other factors. When you're under chronic stress, your cortisol stays high. High cortisol raises blood sugar and promotes fat storage around your midsection. It disrupts sleep. The cycle feeds on itself. But interrupting that cycle doesn't require radical change. A brief walk outside in sunlight, few minutes of deep breathing, slowing down your exhale. A genuine conversation with someone you trust. I've seen far too many men who have no one to talk to. You need an outlet, someone who knows your struggles and cares about you anyway. That's not a luxury. It's a medical necessity. And finally, have an honest conversation with your doctor about your medications. Ask if any of your medications could be contributing to elevated blood sugar. Ask if there are alternatives. Many doctors are rushed and don't mention these interactions unless asked. Be your own advocate. Bring your medication list and say, I'm concerned about my blood sugar. What role are my medications playing? That simple question can be a game changer. Here's what I want you to take away. Your body doesn't want to be sick. It's not working against you. It's working desperately to keep you healthy despite everything you've put it through. The elevated blood sugar, the insulin resistance, the inflammation, those are not your body failing. They are your body surviving. It's doing the best it can with what you've given it. And when you give it the support it needs, when you eat in a way that respects its biology, when you move in a way that honors its design, when you sleep in a way that allows it to repair, your body responds. It's almost miraculous. Fasting glucose drops. Energy returns. Focus sharpens. That foggy, sluggish feeling you attributed to age lifts. So here's my challenge to you. Pick one thing, just one. Maybe it's the savory breakfast. Maybe it's the 2-minute walk every 30 minutes. Maybe it's a consistent bedtime. Maybe it's a phone call to an old friend. Pick one thing and commit to it for 30 days. Not forever, just 30 days. And then evaluate. How do you feel? Once you've established that habit, add another. Over the course of a year, you will have transformed your metabolic health. Not through willpower, through small, sustainable changes that compound. When you look at that 115 million number, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But I want you to remember this. That number isn't a statistic. It's 115 million individuals. And every one of them has a choice. You have a choice. The same choice Bob made. The same choice I've seen countless patients make. The choice to say, I am not going to be a statistic. I am going to take control. And the men who make that choice, they don't just lower their blood sugar, they change the entire second half of their lives. More energy to play with their grandchildren, more clarity to manage their relationships, more stamina to travel and pursue the passions they've put on hold. They add years to their lives and life to their years. Bob turned 70 last year. He's still teaching part-time. He still plays with his grandchildren. He still travels with his wife. And he told me something I'll never forget. He said, "Dr. Maxwell, I didn't know I was sick until I got better. Now I know what healthy feels like. And I'm never going back." That's the real story. It's not about a blood test. It's about the quality of the life you have left to live. So I want to ask you to do 3 things. First, if this resonated with you, hit that like button. It tells YouTube to show this video to more men who need to hear it. Second, subscribe and turn on notifications. I release new videos every week on topics exactly like this, and I'm here to be your guide. Third, drop a comment below. Tell me what you're going to do first. What's the one change you're going to make? I read every single comment. Your commitment encourages other men to take action for themselves. And if you want to go deeper, watch my video on the 3 essential blood tests every man over 50 needs. It goes into the specific markers that can predict prediabetes years before it shows up on standard blood work. The link is in the description. Thank you for giving me your time today. It means more than you know. I'm Dr. Maxwell, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves.